Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Dark Verse and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Prodigy Naruto Was Bound to Anko Forever Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. Kakashi arrived and stepped inside, only to see the bodies of the Anbu that were supposed to be on watch scattered all around the makeshift. Took out a kunai and headed inside, only to stop as he heard the telltale sounds of a fight. He went into the room where Kushina was giving birth, only to see the Yondaime Hokage fighting against a masked man with a swirled mask on. "Give me back my son!" Minato yelled as he charged at the man, only to go right through him. Tisk, 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 now Mina-chan, that wasn't very wise. The man said as he picked up a Hiraishin kunai and threw the newborn up, intent on impaling it. Minato flashed over the kunai and caught the baby, then flashed away. The masked man stared at Kushina with an evil smirk. "Nay, can Kyuubi-kun come out to play?" he asked in a menacing tone. Kakashi charged at him with a kunai, only to go right through him. As Kakashi looked at the man, he saw a Sharingan eye, and his world went black. Namikaze Estate. Minato flashed into the baby room holding the baby tightly and set him in the crib. He was about to flash back to Kushina, only to see a large amount of dark red chakra released and take the shape of a giant fox. Minato cursed his luck and her eye shined back to the hospital, picked Kushina up, and took her back to the estate. After he made sure she was gonna be okay, he picked up his newborn son and her eye shined to the Hokage Tower. Hokage Tower. Minato looked through his sealing notes and found the seal he was looking for. Since the Kyuubi had been released, it would have to be resealed into something. Unfortunately, only a newborn child's chakra coiled could handle the sheer amount of chakra. Minato tossed the scroll to Sarutobi and asked him to draw it on the stomach of his child. "Minato, this is the dead demon consuming seal. You can't seriously be thinking of using this," Sarutobi said. Minato had a grim look on his face as he signed the summoning contract with the Shinigami. "I don't have a choice, old man. It's either this or the village is toast. The hand signs are written on the scroll itself, so it will be easy enough. Just take." Minato was never able to finish that sentence as Sarutobi knocked him out. "I'm sorry, old boy, but you're needed more than I am," Sarutobi thought as he signed his name on the summoning contract and grabbed the child. Time skip. After the sealing. Minato groaned as he got up. He looked around in hopes that Konoha was still standing, only to see the relatively calm night. He saw the name of Sarutobi written on the contract and guessed what happened. Her eye shined to the old cage bunker and found a lifeless Sarutobi standing over a sleeping baby boy. His baby boy. Minato grieved for the fallen cage, but picked up his child and grabbed the corpse. Her eye shined back to the Hokage Tower and called in his forces. "Now that you are all here, I may begin. Earlier, as my wife was giving birth, a madman came and unleashed the Kyuubi. As I took her back to our clan estates, I grabbed my newborn son. I was planning on sealing the Kyuubi into him with the Shiki Fuin, but Sarutobi Hiruzen knocked me out and took my place. He made the ultimate sacrifice, and because of him, we are still alive. Rally the civilians and get them together for the announcement," Minato said. "But what if they ask the name of their new savior? Tell him the name is Hiruzen Uzumaki Namikaze," Minato said with a smile. At the Namikaze clan estates, Naruto looked onto his sleeping mother with a worried expression on his face. Time skipped 3 years. As the time passed, things seemed to stabilize at the Namikaze clan home. Kushina got the hang of being a stay-at-home mom and taking care of Hiruzen. Minato got back to his duties as Kage, and Naruto had started looking through the scrolls in the Namikaze library. Naruto was currently reading out in the sun while his little brother played nearby. Rooftop 2 blocks away. Kabuto was having a really bad day. First Orochimaru assigned him to be an inside spy in Konoha, and he had to act all nice and sweet so no one would suspect him. Currently, he was wearing a black pair of pants and a black long-sleeved shirt, solid black gloves covering his hands, and his hair was hidden in a black skull cap. He was wearing contact lenses so no one would recognize him. He laid down on his stomach and looked through the scope, the mounted Senbon launcher aimed at the youngest Namikaze. Damn it, first I have to pretend to like everyone here. Now, Orochimaru-sama and his organization see this brat as a threat, and I'm sent to deal with it. Kabuto smirked as he opened a small vial of orange liquid and poured it in the loading cartridge. Oh, little Hiruzen, you won't be making trouble for anyone, Kabuto said with an evil smirk. As he took aim, Naruto went to Hiruzen and picked him up. Naruto-chan, bring Hiruzen-kun in, will you? It's dinner time. Yay, 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 I'm going. Naruto said as he picked up the baby and carried him towards the house. Shit, I have no clear shot, Kabuto thought as he followed Naruto with the scope. Come on, give me a clear shot, Kabuto said. As Naruto opened the door and tried to go in, the baby's hand showed. Bingo, Kabuto thought as he pulled the string and the Senbon launched. Ah, Naruto yelled as he fell to the floor, gripping the baby in his hands. The baby had managed to avoid the Senbon, but Naruto had 9 Senbon buried in his back and 12 more shattered the window. Kushina came running and saw Naruto on the floor, writhing in pain. Naruto-kun, she yelled as she picked him and the baby up and shunned to the hospital. Hospital? That night, Naruto groaned as he tried to get up. He saw his back was bandaged and was worriedly trying to figure out why, but calmed when he heard his father's voice. I'm sorry Hokage-sama, but the Senbon were laced with an unknown poison. It was lucky he got in when he did and we managed to extract it. The poison has damaged his chakra coils severely, but with his Uzumaki healing factor, they are healing. Unfortunately, he will be around 14 when they fully heal. Naruto's eyes watered at that. He wouldn't be able to use chakra until he was a teen. Did that mean he wouldn't be able to become a ninja? His whole family would. Wait, his family. His father was the Yondaime. Surely he'd think of something. Right. Well, I don't know how he'll take the news. He's been going on about becoming a ninja ever since I can remember. Thank goodness it was him and not Hiruzen, Minato said, shattering what little hope Naruto had left. He cried himself to sleep that night, knowing he was truly tossed aside by his own father. Time skipped 2 years. As the time passed, Naruto grew to resent his younger brother. After the news of his chakra coils were given to him, he was shattered, but managed to get through it. He decided to learn as much as he could about sealing since it often required little to no chakra. Hiruzen was started into his ninja training a year after his attack so he could protect. He always managed to notice the blatant favoritism shown to his brother. His parents always paid more attention to Hiruzen. Kushina would dote over him when he was sick, and Minato would spend every free moment he had with him. Naruto's birthdays weren't very special or barely acknowledged, but Hiruzen's were the biggest bashes in all of the village. Naruto couldn't help but feel that his parents thought he didn't have much potential after his attack, so they tended to place more value on Hiruzen. But he never did get far because his parents would always stop him, claiming he was unable because of his disability. Bullshit. They knew sealing was a relatively chakra-free art, but they just didn't have time to waste on him. Hiruzen deserved it anyway. The last straw came today. Today was supposed to be Hiruzen's 6th birthday, but it was also the day Naruto knew he truly hated his family. It all started simple enough, with a street carnival to celebrate Hiruzen for being the hero of Konoha. Tsunade Senju and Jiraiya always made time to come back to Konoha during this day, but wouldn't even talk to Naruto. Instead, they mostly spent their time with Hiruzen and helped train him. This birthday was no different. His godparents came and went straight to the birthday boy, completely ignoring him. Birthday. Hiruzen smiled with glee in his eyes as he tore through the packages. He had gotten some training kunai, a few jutsu scrolls, and some clothing, his favorite being a cloak that resembled his father's. He was 3 feet, 7 inches, red hair, chocolate brown eyes, and wore loose cargo pants and an orange shirt with the Namikaze clan symbol on it. He might have been young, but he was well on his way to being at genin level. Of course, his parents trained him, his mother doted over him continuously, his father bonded with him, and his godparents were 2 of the 3 legendary Sannin. He might as well have been an only child. He was having fun rifling through his presents, and looked towards his godparents. Ba-chan, pervert, how are you? Good, brat, I've got a big present for you. Jiraiya said as he unraveled the summoning scroll for toads. Since you've got the Kyuubi's chakra, I figured you would be perfect for this. Hey, wait a second you pervert. I want him to sign the slug contract so that he can take care of himself. Tsunade chimed in. Hiruzen looked at his brother and saw his saddened face. But what about Big Bro? He asked. They both turned to see their forgotten godchild and turned down ashamedly. Sorry Naruto, you can sign it when your chakra coils are fixed and you're trained properly. They both said, obviously using his injury as a bullshit excuse. Naruto frowned, but waved them off. Now son, I can give you my present. As you are younger than your older brother and stronger, I hereby pass on the right of the clan heir to you. Kushina behind him smiled and nodded, while Naruto's world was shattered inside. Only the oldest child in a clan was allowed to be clan heir. If he dies, then the younger one can take over. The only way for the younger one to become clan head without a bloodshed was for the current clan head to disown the current clan knew this, and apparently, so did his godparents, judging from the looks they had on their faces. This bastard not only stole his parents and any attention he might have attained, but also took his birthright. Naruto stomped out and ran, heading to who knows where. He jumped over a large chain link fence, and kept running into the forest of death. As he ran, he couldn't see in front of him and fell into a pond of quicksand. He tried struggling against it, but it just swallowed him faster. Damn it, so this is how it ends? Naruto asked himself as he sunk in, the world going black. Underground cave. Naruto awoke with a severe headache and looked around. He was in a dark, dank cave. As his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he made out various skeletons that looked human-like and some animal-like. He groaned as he cracked his neck back into place, for once thankful for his Uzumaki regenerative abilities. He looked around and saw a large metal door. He approached it slowly, and tried to push it open, but couldn't. After half an hour of trying to open the door, he leaned against a wall and a beep sounded. As the door screeched open, Naruto stared in awe. Inside, Naruto marveled at the cleanliness of the place. While the hallways were sterile and metallic, he couldn't help but stare. As he walked in, he saw a large A insignia against the wall. As he walked further, he came into a room with 6 large mannequins standing in a circle. One was a large, almost inhuman green man in a pose that looked like he was about to smash a wall. Another was a man in red, white, and blue uniform holding a shield with stripes around it and a star in the middle. In his other hand, he had a gauntlet-like metal contraption that seemed lightweight. Naruto turned to see what looked like a suit of armor in red and yellow. He then turned to see a man in a black military-issue uniform with a quiver strapped to his back and what looked to be like a collapsible bow in his hands. Besides him was a man wearing seemingly ancient armor with long flowing hair and a giant hammer in his hand. Finally, he turned to see the statue of a woman with beautiful eyes, red hair, and clothes that seemed to be painted on. She was holding some kind of bracers and had pockets full of knives. Over the statues was only one word. Avengers. Who are you? Naruto turned and looked as a man who seemed to be transparent and blue walked towards him. Ah, what are you? My name is Jarvis, I am the main program in charge of the upkeep of this place and the main system operator. Now who are you? My name is Naruto, so surname, not anymore anyway. I'm sorry for intruding, he said. It is quite fine. May I get you something to drink? No, I'm fine, but what is this place? This was once the proud bunker of the Avengers, the greatest defenders of the free world. The Avengers? Who are they? If you follow me, I will show you. Jarvis said as he led him to the screening area, where he accessed the Avenger profiles and some of their fights and projected them onto the big screen. Naruto watched in awe as these heroes took on some of the world's most powerful villains and survived. Where are they now? Dead, I'm afraid. Their time has long since passed. How long ago? Approximately 500 years. Jarvis replied. Then why are you still here? They instructed me to pass on what I could of the Avengers to future generations. I run on a nuclear reactor, so I can literally go on forever. Jarvis replied. Nay, Jarvis-san, could I be an Avenger? He asked. Jarvis watched him with interest and took him to the medical bay for a scan. After said scan, amazing, you have the same kind of energy coursing through your body that Tony had after his accident. You certainly meet the qualifications of being an Avenger, but if I may ask, why do you want to become one? Well, I've been neglected since childhood, so I've always been on my own. My parents finally disowned me today because of a disability, and now I've got nothing left. I want to show the world that I'm just as good as any of them, even if I can't use chakra yet. Jarvis smiled, seeing a literal copy of Captain America and Tony standing in front of him. Well, Naruto-san, we just need your parents' approval and we can begin. My parents don't really care much for me. They're always doting over my younger brother more. I once left the compound for a week and they didn't even notice. And they just disowned me today. Jarvis frowned at this kid. Had he really had it this bad? Come, let's go, Jarvis said as he led Naruto to another section of the med bay. Lay down here. Naruto complied and laid down, only to have a big helmet placed on his head. What's this gonna do? Naruto asked as he looked at Jarvis. It will access your brain and display your memories on the monitor, but you must be asleep. We will talk more later. Jarvis said. Naruto slowly nodded and fell asleep, his first memory begging of when he was born. Jarvis saw as he grew up happy for a while. But after the newborn came, his parents completely forgot about him. They barely fed him, kept him in a room more resembling a closet, and neglected his education. After today, not only was his world shattered, but he had been disowned in favor of his more fit brother. This child has the drive to become one of the best Avengers to have ever been, but I'm not sure of the rest of this world. It seems like he's one of a few in a war-torn world. Jarvis said as the memories ended when his parents named their youngest clan heir. Jarvis walked out and accessed the library files. Interesting, he said as he looked through the collection of books he had since before the changing of the world and the few scattered volumes he had managed to retrieve from dead genin in the forest of death. He began cataloging the screenshots of the memories of the books Naruto had read. The world had changed, and this child seemed like the one that would remind them of who the Avengers were. His memory would be avenged, and his parents would finally see what they threw away. Naruto groaned as he slowly tried to get up, his head pounding. OWW. Here, take this. Naruto opened his eyes to see Jarvis and what looked to be like a table with wheels at his bedside. Jarvis was offering him some sort of pill. He took it and gulped it down with water. What hit me? Just a side effect of the mind reading. I have searched through your mind and have a pretty good idea of what has become of the outside world. You qualify to be an apprentice of the Avengers in your current state of health, but I do not know much of chakra, or the sort, so I am afraid I would be little to no help to you in that area. Come follow me, Jarvis said as he began walking. Naruto slowly got up and followed him. There were 6 original Avengers. Jarvis began as they arrived in the room that held the statues. Captain America, the Star-Spangled Super Soldier and Leader. Jarvis pointed to the statue in the red, white, and blue uniform with the red, white, and blue shield. Hulk, the gamma radiation created giant with superhuman strength. Thor, the thunder god with his mighty hammer Mjolnir. Jarvis reminisced as the statue of the Hulk and Thor came to view. Tony Stark, aka Iron Man. A mastermind as far as electronics in his suit of armor. He managed to develop an armor capable of flight and taking on hundreds all by himself. Hawkeye, an expert marksman and weapons expert. Never missed a target, except under the rarest circumstances. Jarvis said as he pointed at the statues of Iron Man and Hawkeye. And finally Black Widow, an expert infiltration and assassin. Able to get out of any situation. Jarvis finished with the statue. He turned to see Naruto with stars in his eyes. Unfortunately, only 4 of them left behind hollow drones to pass on their abilities. Thor and Hulk's abilities were either gained as a birthright or as a result of an accident. And Tony's armor is hundreds of years away from being developed in this primitive Earth. Jarvis said as he looked at Naruto. Tony's knowledge, however, can be passed down to you, if you apply yourself to long and difficult studies. Black Widow, Captain America, and Hawkeye left knowledge of themselves behind to pass down. Jarvis began, bringing back a sliver of hope to Naruto's eye. You will begin training with Captain. Jarvis said as he headed to the main computer console and typed in code and instruction. Naruto watched as a human-like doll made of metal walked out of a closet. He stared in awe as light formed around him, making the form of sweatpants and a gray sweatshirt, blonde hair and blue eyes forming and facial features forming. Now, how about you go get breakfast while I program this training robot? Jarvis asked as Naruto nodded and left with another copy of Jarvis to the living area for breakfast. After breakfast, Naruto grinned as he headed to the training area Jarvis had assigned him to. As he got to the door, he knocked and stepped in. He was bombarded by a pair of sweatpants, a sweatshirt, a t-shirt, running shoes, hand wraps, and boxing gloves. Wah, Naruto wondered, until the same robot from before approached him. My name is Steve Rogers, and I will be training you until you are fit enough to be my protege. I want you to go and change, but leave the wraps and gloves for later. You are to do 150 sit-ups, push-ups, and crunches. Then, you will go to the individual weights and start off with the 20-pound ones. 5 sets of 20 each arm. You will head to the bench and lift 80 pounds, 5 sets of 20. Afterwards, you will be put to run for 5 miles, rest 20 minutes, then run them again. 5 times. Afterwards, you are to report here for the first lesson of boxing. After training for the day, you are to report to Jarvis for lessons in math, science, language, history, and whatever history on chakra and Konoha we can find. Any questions? Naruto shook his head dumbly, scared of the drill sergeant persona in front of him. He took off to the changing rooms as Jarvis was walking in. Did you have to make me a drill sergeant? For the first few months, yes. Afterwards, I will revert your personality back to normal. Think he is gonna be able to take on the training? Steve asked. Well, he has 2 years to get to your level. Jarvis replied amused. You know what I mean. I was genetically changed. He wasn't. Captain quipped. I'll be able to level the playing field soon. I'm currently trying to reverse engineer your DNA samples to crack the super soldier formula. Jarvis replied, making the bot's eyes widen. Will his body be able to take the strain? Steve asked worried. I believe so. Ultimately, it will be up to you if he does receive it since it was your DNA. Jarvis finished and left as Naruto walked back to the training area. Go, maggot. Naruto shivered as he started his physical exercises under the watchful eye of Steve Rogers, aka Captain America. Time skipped 2 years. Naruto groaned as he looked ahead of the track. 13 miles down, 2 miles to go. Over the years, Naruto and Steve had developed a father-son relationship. That is, after Steve was taken off drill sergeant mode. Naruto confided in Steve his problems, his fears, and Steve helped him get over them or put them at ease. He had told him of his life with his parents and the blatant favoritism of his brother, his disownment, and his neglect. Steve had seen the horrors of war and what joy children showed when they were reunited with their lost parents. To most of them, it meant the world that their children were still alive. To know these people ignored him in favor of his brother because his brother had more potential and his chakra network damage sickened him. Done. Cap. Steve turned to see Naruto finishing off his last few laps. The boy had gained some muscle, but not a lot throughout the years. He looked like an athletic swimmer, the cardio having done wonders for him. Naruto, do you know what today is? The day I take you down, old man. Steve smiled at Naruto's spunk. Today is graduation day. You have to incapacitate me using only what you have learned. That is, you have to beat me in a hand-to-hand fight. Naruto gulped, but nodded and rapped his knuckles. And if you are to fail, you will be expelled from the Avengers and expunged from the records as my protege. What? That isn't fair. Life isn't fair. You should know that. Naruto put on his boxing gloves and faced Cap. Any chance of you going easy? Nope. Worth a shot. Naruto ducked under a brutal hook Cap threw and retaliated with a kidney shot, only for Cap to move out of the way. Come on, you're gonna have to do much better than that. Naruto smirked and charged at Cap with a continuous combo of jabs and straights. Damn it, he's too good. Naruto thought as his face met the business end of Cap's fist. Damn, it's like getting hit by a train. Naruto thought as he shook the webs from his head. You're gonna have to do better than that. Naruto growled and charged at Cap, throwing a fake jab and following with a right hook to the side torso and another side hook to the face. Cap took the blow, but kept standing. Not bad, Cap said as he charged at Naruto and threw a hook overhead, only for Naruto to duck under it and give him a hook to the core and an uppercut to the chin. Naruto watched as Cap fell backwards. Not bad, but if you widened your stance you would get more power out of those punches. This sucks. You're a robot, so you don't feel pain. Jarvis is shutting down my power supply per hit you manage to land. Right now I'm at 55%. Naruto groaned as he charged at Cap and threw a jab, fake straight, a short-range uppercut, and a hook to the side. 30%, Cap said as he swung at Naruto and missed, but followed with a hook and got him in the head. Shit. Naruto yelled as his eyebrow split open and blood started flowing from it. Come on. What? Was I wrong to think you could be my protege? Naruto got up and went back in. Naruto went for his core this time, focusing on a flurry of fast-paced punches. 29.26. 0.21. 13 inches Cap began, until a sudden uppercut hit him in the chin and sent him flying. Naruto watched as the robot slowly got up. Well done, Naruto. I have taught you all that I can. I was experimented on and physically enhanced, which is why I have taught you everything I know, but the gap between our level is so big. Jarvis has been working on a chamber to recreate the project in, but has only succeeded in a theoretical level and has managed to recreate 3 of the 9 vials of enhanced vitamins, minerals, and mutagens. Now, please report to Jarvis and he will direct you to your next teacher after your lesson with Tony. Naruto nodded and left to the classroom where a bot with the holographic look of Tony was waiting. Hey Naruto, did you do your homework? Yes sir. Naruto said as he handed in some algebra problems. Today we will be covering Algebra 2, Human Anatomy, Basic Compounds, and Metalworking. Tony stated. His little student was like a sponge. He breezed through language and literature, science seemed to be a hobby of his, and numbers were almost slaves to his mind. After the day's lessons, now, the next person to train you will be, me, said a sultry voice. Naruto turned to see the hologram form of Black Widow approach him, wavy red hair and full luscious lips with soul-piercing eyes staring down at him and a bodysuit that might have been painted on for all he knew. Her. Tony said with a sigh. Naruto groaned as he stood in the same training ground that he had trained in with Captain. Now, eyes are up here, Naruto. Natalia said with a smirk. Oh, how she loved to tease. My name is Natalia Romanov and I will be teaching you everything I know, from infiltration to information gathering and stealth. I will also be teaching you another style of fighting, the complete opposite of Captain's. Natalia stated smugly. But what do you mean by opposite? Punch me. Huh. Throw a punch. Get in stance and give me the meanest punch you can. Naruto shrugged and got into a loose boxing stance, throwing a hard straight. Natalia ducked under it and grabbed his arm with one arm and hooked his armpit with the other. Before Naruto knew, he was flipped onto his back. Natalia then made a downwards kick, allowing it to land softly in his chest. Dead. Huh. Natalia kicked the front of his foot and smirked as a small blade came out of the heel of her shoe. Dead. Naruto began sweating profusely. What was that? A simple fit. If you want, I can teach you that and so much more. And I will also teach you some grappling moves and reversals. However, my uniform is much more different than Cap's. Black Widow smirked as Jarvis came in with a small moving table following him. The items you requested. Go get changed. Natalia said and Naruto left quickly. Think he can handle it? He managed to do Captain's. Yay, but I'm much tougher. True. Try not to kill him. Jarvis said playfully. Natalia nodded as he left and Naruto stepped out. He was now wearing black cargo pants, a black t-shirt, and steel-toed boots. Why are these boots so heavy? Naruto asked. Natalia just went up to a punching bag set up in the room and kicked it, the impact actually sending the bag flying until it was caught by the chain supporting it. So you don't hurt your feet doing that. Now, stretch yourself and make sure you're loose. After that, I'll teach you a few reversals and some moves. Then we will move on to basic infiltration. Afterwards, beginner's information gathering and hiding in plain sight. And finally we will spar so I can see where you are currently and we can begin training those feet for high impact kicks. Naruto saluted and got down to stretching. After half an hour, he determined he was ready. Now, what is the boxer's biggest weakness? I'm not. Naruto started, but was silenced as a sharp kick to his knees sent him to the ground, pain flaring throughout his whole body. The biggest weakness is the over-reliance of upper body strength. Now, some opponents are well trained and have set stances and katas. Others are pugilist and go for the straight brawler style. How do you deal with the brawlers? Naruto put his hand up to his chin and began to think, only for Natalia to drop to one knee, wrap her arms around his knee, and twist it to one side, making him fall to the floor. You mess with their center of balance. Most people trained properly in hand-to-hand combat won't fall for such a simple trick, so you will have to focus on disabling and reversing moves. Here, you have to be able to think fast and retaliate faster. Now, get into your stance. Naruto groaned, but did as he was told. Okay, now. Naruto started, but was thrown off when he was flipped by Natalia standing behind him. How did you? I hugged around your waist, locked my hands together, and threw you over my leg. Now do 5 laps around the arena as silently as you can while wearing these. Natalia said as she dropped a weight vest totaling 40 pounds and arm and ankle weights totaling 20 pounds a limb. The combined weight is 120 pounds. You need to learn how to move quickly and silently. Now hurry up and get to it. We have a lot to do and 2 years' time is barely enough. Naruto nodded and followed her. Time skipped 2 years. Naruto groaned as he stared at Natalia. I've gotten better, you gotta give me that much. Natalia nodded, sporting a slight bruise on her cheek and her body hurting everywhere. Over time, they had developed a mother-son relationship. When Naruto was sick and couldn't do anything, she would take care of him. He confided in her with his problems when he couldn't go to Cap. When he was feeling sad, she would cheer him up. When his birthday came by, she would always plan the best parties she could and would even take control of a bot to make Naruto a special cake. Overall, Natalia Romanov, a trained assassin and infiltration specialist, was the best mother Naruto could ask for. Naruto shook his head from those thoughts as Natalia charged at him. He ducked under a kick and retaliated with a knee to her stomach. As Natalia tried to get up, Naruto grabbed her head and smashed it against his knee. Natalia fell back, but managed to stand on her own. She looked up, only to see Naruto, gone behind. Natalia yelled and tried to kick backwards, only to feel a sharp pain against the top of her head. Damn it! She yelled as she saw Naruto and from his kick to her head. Dead, Naruto said with a smirk. What? Naruto stomped the foot he kicked her with and a large 2-inch blade sprang from the bottom of his boot. Dead, he said again with a huge grin on his face. Fine, she replied with her cheeks puffed, but pride evident in her face. Yeah, Naruto yelled as he fell backwards to the soft ground under him. Nay, Natalia. Yes. Captain had a graduation test after he finished teaching me. Are you gonna do the same? Yes, but mines won't be physical. No. You see, I am an infiltration specialist for a reason. Then what is my test? Tonight is October 10th. The Namakazes, your former family, are throwing a huge bash to celebrate. Invite only. Your job is to take this, she said as she held up a small gray orb in the palm of her hand. And infiltrate the Namakaze household. After you have infiltrated, you are to set this off in the Namakaze library and keep the room clear for 5 minutes. It will scan the whole area and store any and all written information into its memory bank. Then, return here. Being caught isn't an option. Naruto smirked as he took the small gray ball. I love this assignment, Naruto said as he got up and headed to his room. Where are you going? To get ready, Naruto replied excitedly. Naruto's room. Naruto grinned as he grabbed a pair of scissors and started cutting his hair, lowering it from his regular spiky look to a flat one. The then left the bangs long and smirked as he took a bottle of black hair dye. Here's hoping, Naruto said out loud as he started to dye his hair and eyebrows black. He let the dye set in and hopped into the shower, ready to wash it out. After Naruto stepped out of the shower, he dried his painted hair and styled it to the sides. Think Sylvester Stallone's in The Expendables. Naruto then put on a formal suit that had been laid out for him by Natalia. Thanks, Naruto yelled as he threw on a pair of black sweatpants and a black sweatshirt. Naruto then went to the mirror and looked at his reflection. Damn it, my eyes are a dead giveaway, Naruto thought as he began rifling through his medicine cabinet. Jackpot, Naruto said as he took out what looked like they were a pair of contact lenses and put them on. He now had brown eyes. Brown eyes, black hair. Simple face, nothing that really sticks out and can be easily, almost subconsciously forgotten. Naruto smirked as he headed up a hidden hatch, finding himself outside of the Forest of Death. He smirked as he walked to his old house, finding a lot of security and a bouncer at the door. Naruto walked to the side and climbed the tree, then waited patiently. 30 minutes later. Got it, Naruto said as he got up slowly. Easiest place to get in is through the second-floor bathroom. Security makes rounds every 5 minutes, so I have to be fast about it. Now one is in the bathroom now, Naruto thought as he dashed to the side of the house. Side of the house. Naruto grinned as he looked towards the open window. Now, Naruto began as he put on a pair of black gloves. He then took out 2 matching black cases and aimed them at the roof. With a small ping, cables made of Teflon were ejected and buried themselves at the roof of the house. He then attached them to his belt and slowly put both of his feet up against the wall. Easy, Naruto thought as he started walking upwards. Right before he could reach the window, he was spotted. Hey you, a guard leading a large black dog yelled. Naruto hurried and walked into the bathroom. Shit, Naruto thought as he retracted the Teflon cables and put the boxes on the counter. Naruto then took off his sweats and hid them underneath the bathroom cabinet. He finished combing his hair and hid the Teflon cable boxes on his person, then walked out as 3 guards walked into the second-floor hallway. Naruto ducked into the first door he found and hid there, listening as the security guards slammed the door open to find nothing. Naruto smirked as he heard them curse and send out an APB on a male with black hair wearing a tux. That was half of the people at the party. After he made sure they had left, Naruto walked into the bathroom and grabbed his sweats. Leave no clues, he thought as he took the trash bag off the trash can in the bathroom and slipped his sweats inside. He then carried it to the service entrance and left it behind a stack of crates. I'm in, and hidden in the best place available, in plain sight. Naruto thought with a smirk as he headed off to mingle and hopefully find the library. Naruto groaned as he was dragged to the head of the present line by a slim blonde with green eyes. Akane-san, why are we going to the front? To greet our hosts, she said giddily. Minato-sama, Kushina-san, Akane-chan, how have you been? Kushina asked gladly as she saw the blonde drag yet another one-night stand towards them. Akane had a knack for not staying with a guy long, but she always managed to rebound, continuously. I'm great. This is, my name is Steve Rogers. Naruto said as he introduced himself. Steve-san, are you not from around here? Minato said, something about this guy rubbing him the wrong way. I'm your son, you bastard. Yes, I am not from here. It was a pleasure meeting you too, and I hope your son has a fantastic birthday. Naruto said as he dragged Akane away. Akane-san, are you friends with the Namakazes? Of course, I have been babysitting their son for the last 3 years. I know this place like the back of my hand. She replied gladly. Akane-chan, is there any place quiet that no one goes to where we could be alone? Naruto asked her as he pressed his muscular body close to hers and whispered hotly in her ear. Well, there is a small hall closet, Akane replied, a large blush on her face. No. Somewhere more private, Naruto said softly into her ear as he trailed his tongue over her earlobe. Well, the clan library is unlocked, but we really shouldn't go in there. Come on, Akane-chan. We can have so much fun, he whispered as he trailed kisses down her neck. Akane was as red as a tomato as she grabbed his hand and led him to the clan library. Clan library. Akane moaned as she and Naruto got into the clan library. She cradled his head to her chest and closed her eyes, memorizing the feeling of his lips over her soft creamy flesh. Naruto continued to trace kisses and gently lick her skin as he looked around. Damn it, this library is huge. Naruto thought as he lifted Akane, dropping the metallic ball on the ground activated. Let's go somewhere more private, Naruto whispered to her as he carried her out of the library. Hang on, I forgot my purse, Akane said as soon as the library door closed behind them. Before she could get in, Naruto grabbed her and pulled her close to him, kissing her passionately as his arms wrapped around her waist. He then backed into an open closet and sat on a nearby box. Akane climbed on top of him and began kissing his chest. All the while, Naruto was sweating bullets. Shit. I never expected things to go this far. Naruto cradled her head and looked at his watch. 2:30 left, now how do I get out of this without being the bad guy? Naruto asked himself as he saw Akane's green eyes looking at him. Akane-chan, I'm sorry but I can't do this. You're a wonderful girl, and you deserve much better than a sleazy hall closet. Naruto said as he looked at his watch. 1 minute. Naruto thought. Truth be told, there are plenty of guys out there who deserve you more than I. And I fear I am not worthy of you, a goddess sitting before me. But I do hope I will someday. So for now, how about we go get your purse and head back upstairs? We can be friends and if it feels right maybe more later. Akane nodded and hugged him, then got off and went to the library, to find nothing. Naruto stepped in behind her and grabbed the silver ball off the floor, slipping it into his pocket. After the purse had been retrieved, they headed back upstairs and rejoined the party. As they made their way through the crowds, Akane was too distracted by her thoughts to notice Naruto leave. Amazing. Guys always take the first chance of a one-night stand they have with me, but he turned it down because I deserve better. Maybe this one is different. Akane thought. Then looked around to see Naruto, gone. Steve-kun. With Naruto. Naruto grinned as he headed to the servant's exit. He grabbed the trash bag from behind the stack of crates and was about to leave, until he saw the open fire where the food for the feast was to be cooked. Don't want to leave them disappointed, he thought as he threw the trash bag into the fire. As soon as he made sure the bag and its contents had been burned, he started to leave, the smell of trash filling the air. Outside the Namikaze house servant entrance, Naruto smirked as he walked outside, but was stopped by an Anbu. Hey, may I ask you a few questions? Fire away, Naruto said. Yes. Well, why did you exit through the servant's entrance? And how do you know the Namikazes? I'm sorry if this is inconvenient, but we had a break-in recently and need to check everyone. Oh, I was here as Akane-san's date. And I left through the servant's entrance because she's been hunting me like a lion hunts a gazelle all evening. Naruto smoothly replied. The Anbu chuckled under his mask at the poor man's misfortune. All right, sir, that is all I needed. You might want to leave soon though. From the ruckus I hear over the radio, I think your date is looking for you. Naruto gulped, turned heel and ran. The Anbu chuckled and went back to his post. With Naruto. Naruto grinned happily as he headed to the entrance hatch near the Forest of Death. He looked around and after making sure the coast was clear, went in. He was greeted by the hologram of Jarvis and a robot with Natalia's hologram over it. Mission status? She asked. Success, Naruto said as he tossed the sphere of silver to Natalia. Get to the meeting room. I want you debriefed. Naruto nodded and went to the meeting room. One steamy debriefing later, Naruto walked out of the debriefing room blushing with an embarrassed-looking Natalia following him. He had just told her about what he did to gain access to the library, and to say he was embarrassed was to say the least. She was like his mother. Don't be embarrassed. You did what you had to do to get the mission done. As long as you don't kill an innocent, it's fine. She said as she looked him in the eye. Seduction is a powerful weapon. The sooner you master it, the better off you will be. Now go get some rest, you cheeky brat. Tomorrow you have a new teacher and Tony's lessons. Naruto nodded dumbly and headed to his room, still embarrassed. He's growing up to be a fine protege. Natalia turned to see Captain America standing behind her. He is, but I'm worried about him. Sure, he managed to do what needed to be done for this mission, but what if the next one proves to be too difficult for him? She asked. Did you teach him everything you know? Pour every ounce of knowledge into him? Steve asked. Yes, but, no buts. Steve cut her off. You have given him the tools he needs to be successful, how he uses them is up to him. Natalia sighed and disconnected herself from her bot. Captain did the same after a few minutes of thinking. Naruto was growing well, and in a few years his training with the Avengers would be complete. Jarvis seemed to be making leaps and bounds to cracking the super soldier formula, but should he allow Naruto to become the next super soldier? Cap sighed and shut his bot unit off. Who knows what tomorrow would bring? The next day, after breakfast, Naruto grinned as he headed to the training area. He would be getting a new teacher today, one that would round off his training. As soon as Naruto stepped into the area, his senses screamed at him to move. He backflipped and narrowly missed 3 throwing knives landing before him. They looked like kunai, except more lightweight and thinner. Good. You've got some sense of reflexes. Naruto looked up to see a man with short clean-cut brown hair and brown eyes. He was wearing loose black cargo pants, boots, a black t-shirt, some kind of vest, a black beret with no insignia, and fingerless gloves. Behind him were caches upon caches of weapons, ranging from throwing knives to swords to bows to anything in between. I'm Hawkeye, and for the next 2 years, you're my apprentice. Naruto nodded as he looked at Hawkeye. Now, Cap and Natalia have been teaching you everything from fighting styles to infiltration and assassination. I am here to teach you weapons training and accuracy. By the time we get done, you will be able to hit a target from 500 yards away easily. Now, for my training you only need one thing. Hawkeye started as he went to the weapons cache and threw a pair of fingerless gloves at Naruto. Now, to begin I will teach you how to handle blades in hand-to-hand fights. Afterwards, you will begin to learn metalworking. And finally, accuracy practice. This includes but is not limited to throwing knives, guns, bows and arrows, high-speed launchers, and everything in between. After you have learned the basics, you will craft your own bow and we will match it to mine to see if it is up to snuff. Quote, every so often, you will leave the base for a week with nothing but a small hunting knife and the clothes on your back. This will teach you how to survive and remain hidden in enemy territory. If I deem you are ready, I will at one point take you into the climate room. There, the toughest climates on Earth can be recreated down to the littlest detail. I am talking snow blizzard, blistering heat, pouring rain, hail, and everything else. Think you can handle it? Naruto nodded as Hawkeye walked towards the weapons cache and threw him a katana. Now, let's see how you handle a blade. Naruto nodded and got into what he thought was a stance, only to be smacked by a large bamboo stick. Straighten your back. TWHACK. Part your feet a bit more. TWHACK. Look directly in front of you, not to the sides. TWHACK. Well, it's a bit rough, but at least it's something. Hawkeye said as he led Naruto to a tree trunk in the middle of the training area. Give it 200 vertical slashes in the up, down, left foot to right shoulder, right foot to left shoulder, then reverse them. When you are done, report to me. It's still a bit early for you to go into metalworking, but that will come with time. Naruto nodded and threw the first slash, bending his back. TWHACK, and stay in your stance. Hawkeye absent-mindedly warned him. 3 hours later, Naruto groaned as sweat poured from everywhere really. He had been going at the slashes for what seemed to be an eternity, and he was almost done. Just a few more, Naruto thought as he finished the slashes. Alright Hawkeye, I'm done. What's next? Accuracy practice. Come here. Naruto excitedly walked by where Hawkeye was and saw two shuriken. One was the standard ninja used, and the other seemed to be more curved at the ends of the edges. Naruto, what's the difference between the shuriken from Konoha and the shuriken I made? Yours are more curved near the edges. And what differences does it make? Naruto groaned as he concentrated. The standard kunai will only pierce skin on a stabbing motion, but this other one seems to be able to do more damage. But how? It doesn't just pierce skin, like a rotor saw it can cut through skin and muscle. Naruto's eyes widened at that. See how a simple change can make a big difference. Naruto dumbly nodded and sat down as Hawkeye started to go over the weapons available. Now, come here, Hawkeye said as he led Naruto towards the targets, holding 3 versions of lightweight, thin kunais and 3 regular kunais. Now throw them. Naruto nodded and threw them, beginning his critical 2-year training. Time skip 2 years. Naruto groaned as he laid down on his belly in the weather room. He stood at 5 feet 12, and was wearing a pair of pants and a large coat, both tundra camouflage style. He stood holding a bow and arrow perfectly still in a bank of snow. Damn it, how long is this going to take? Supervising Chambers. Hawkeye looked down at his protege as he held a switch in his hand. Come on. He's been down there for 3 hours and hasn't moved an inch. Jarvis said behind Hawkeye. Spoilsport. Hawkeye replied as he flipped the switch. A large cage was set open and 13 rabbits with white coats of fur were set loose onto the icy terrain. Downstairs. Naruto groaned as he saw a slight movement in the snow. Kill the one with a beige line running through his back only, no others. Naruto pulled back his string and let the arrow loose. A splash of red fell onto the snow as all of the rabbits scattered. Naruto got up and ran towards his kill. As he approached it, he picked up the lifeless animal into his hand and checked the back. Target confirmed. Beige stripe on the back. Good. Bring your kill in and get ready for the next test. Yay yay yay. Naruto said as the tundra climate powered down and he walked out of the door. My is frozen, he said absent-mindedly as he changed out of his uniform. Training area. Naruto, where have you been? Hawkeye asked. Defrosting with dinner. Naruto replied. Alright fine. The next part is simple. You have to make this mannequin, Hawkeye said pointing to a mannequin holding a kunai in its left hand. Kill itself without getting near 10 feet of it. You have 5 minutes. Naruto nodded as he reached into the weapons pouch strapped to his thigh and pulled out one of his specialized kunai and a length of ninja wire. He quickly tied the wire to the kunai and threw it, piercing the mannequin's hand holding the kunai and holding it in place. He then looped the string over the mannequin's left shoulder and looped the string again around his shoulders to avoid movement. With a strong pull, the pierced wrist swung upwards and ran the kunai through the mannequin's neck. Alright, what's next? Maybe I trained him a bit too well. Hawkeye thought. Go retrieve the bow you made and meet me here. Naruto nodded and headed to retrieve his possession. 5 minutes later, he came back holding a brown box. He opened it and pulled out a folded bow. If you're wondering how it folds, it's like Hawkeye's. He unfolded it, careful to avoid the razor-sharp edges made for close-range combats. After he unfolded it, he clicked on the laser sight and took out an arrow. Alright, there are 2 different lanes. You have to outshoot me. I shoot one lane, you shoot the other. Best score wins. Hawkeye stated. Ladies first. Naruto said, making Hawkeye growl. He is so going down. Hawkeye thought as he took his shots. TWHACK. TWHACK. Thwack. TWHACK. Naruto's eyes widened as he looked at the range. Perfect bull's eyes. Naruto said, your turn. Naruto shrugged as he put his quiver on his back. He walked to Hawkeye's lane and started firing. TWHACK. TWHACK. Thwack. TWHACK. Hawkeye's eyes widened in surprise. Every arrow Naruto shot had split his down the middle. But, what's the matter, Hawkeye? Naruto said with a grin. Nothing, brat. Congratulations. Your weapons expertise has exceeded my expectations. You officially graduate from my training. Hawkeye said as he wrapped an arm around Naruto. Now come on, Natalia has a celebration planned and I don't want to be late. Cause she'll quick you're in about 5 seconds flat. Naruto asked with a wide grin. No, yours on the line, not mine. Hawkeye replied. Naruto paled and sped towards the rec room. If there was one thing you didn't want, it was an angry Natalia after you. Naruto paled and sped towards the rec room. If there was one thing you didn't want, it was an angry Natalia after you. Now, Naruto grinned as he and Hawkeye stood at the entrance to the rec room. Well, go on kid. Naruto entered the room to see Steve, Black Widow, and Jarvis standing over a table that had a large cake on it and some food. Surprise! They yelled in unison as Naruto walked in with Hawkeye. Congratulations on finishing your apprenticeships, Naruto. Natalia said as she led Naruto towards the cake. Congratulations. The cake read. Naruto smiled as Natalia cut him a piece and served him. Well done, Naruto. Cap said as he sat next to Naruto with a slice of his own. Hey, just because he was a robot replica didn't mean he couldn't join in, did it? Thanks, Cap. These last couple of years have been brutal, but definitely worth it. I'm way stronger now than I ever would have been, even with chakra. Naruto replied happily. Speaking of which, you turned 14 last week, Naruto. Doesn't that mean your chakra coils are healed enough to be able to handle chakra? Yay, it does, Natalia. But I don't have anyone to teach me anything and I don't even know the basics. Naruto replied sadly. Maybe I can help. Naruto turned to see Tony's robotic replica approaching him. I've been reading the information you retrieved from the Namikaze archives, and I believe I have figured out enough about chakra to train you in it. I can't offer much, but I will teach you to the best of my abilities. Tony said as Natalia laid a piece of cake in front of him. No talking business at the dinner table. Natalia said, glaring at Tony. We'll talk later. Tony whispered into Naruto's ear. Thanks, Tony. Naruto said as everyone else sat down with a piece of cake before them. After a quick prayer led by Cap, they all dug in. My god, this is delicious. You cooked it, didn't you, Natalia? Naruto asked. Yes, thanks for noticing. She replied, blushing under the compliment. All right, Naruto, quit embarrassing her. There is one more thing before this small celebration comes to an end. Cap said as he brought over various boxes. Presents. Naruto asked. Sure, why not? We might have taught you what we know, but that doesn't mean you know everything we have to teach. Natalia said as she grabbed a handcrafted wooden box and brought it to Naruto. Naruto grinned and opened the box. Inside were 3 holsters. There were 2 Beretta M9 pistols and 1 standard issue M1911. Are these? Naruto began. Yes, they're the same weapons I used during my time in the Avengers. The Berettas have clips that can hold 17 9mm rounds. The M1911 holds only 7 rounds, 8 if you keep one in the chamber, so it's a better backup handgun. I'll teach you the maintenance later. They have 2 spare cartridges per gun, 3 per if you count the ones already in the guns. I have a personal cache of bullets around here, but you will have to find a good metal worker so you can make your own when I show you how. Naruto jumped up and hugged her closely. Thank you so much, Mo. Natalia. Naruto caught himself in his reply. Next up is mine, Tony said as he pushed a small box to Naruto. Naruto opened it to see a small MP3 player and a note. This pass entitles you to one big favor. Naruto read as he turned on the MP3 player. Filled it with Black Sabbath, AC/DC, and a lot more bands. I also managed to tweak a lithium-ion battery to continuously renew itself, so no worries there. Enjoy, Tony said as he went to get another piece of cake. Here. Naruto looked up to see Hawkeye handing him a small box. Thanks, Naruto said as he opened the box. Inside was a black beret with no insignia and a pair of fingerless gloves, similar to his own. They were my gloves from my time as Hawkeye. I know we didn't connect much, but I still taught you and I don't want you forget that. Naruto smiled and nodded as Cap handed him his last present. And this one is from me. Naruto opened the box to see a Kevlar woven bulletproof vest, standard issue with SWAT. That vest can stop bullets traveling at 300 miles per hour. I'm sure it can help you deflect a few kunai and shuriken. Naruto smiled and hugged Cap. Thanks you guys. This is without a doubt the nicest thing anyone has done for me. But if you don't mind my asking, what training comes next? Naruto asked. That's up to you, Naruto. We have taught you all we know. Now it's time for you to make it your own. You will have 2 years to learn all that you can about chakra from Tony and whatever else you deem necessary. After this 2-year period, there will be one final test you must pass. Natalia started. If you pass the test, you will be instated as the first Avenger in 500 years. Hawkeye continued. But if you fail, you will be expunged from the records and any trace of you will be erased. Captain said with a grim expression on his face. Oh come on, no time for melancholy. It's a party, Black Widow said as she tried to put the fun back into the room. Naruto nodded as he got back into the mood. Next day, Naruto groaned as his alarm clock went off. It's too damn early, he cried softly as he hopped out of bed and into the shower. After he was done, He dressed in sweats and headed out to meet with Tony for his chakra lessons. Morning, Naruto. Glad to see someone was able to get up. Just barely. Naruto replied offhandedly. So, what do you plan on doing this next year? Naruto's eyes lit up at the prospect of getting help with his ideas. Well, I was hoping you could fit any information you had on sealing and fuinjutsu into the lesson plans. I also want to try to mix Cap's boxing and Natalia's styles into one explosive mix. I have to practice my accuracy with the handguns too, but as far as weapons go, I have a pretty good idea of what to do to give them that extra oomph they need. Naruto said excitedly. I'm listening. Tony replied as he took a seat. Well, time skip 2 years. Forget the hearse cuz I'll never die. I got 9 Liviscats Isus in every one of them and running wild. It's a well-light workroom where we find one 16-year-old Naruto Uzumaki using a handheld precision laser to carve symbols into the heads of his arrows. Naruto, do you have any idea what time it is? You should be practicing your chakra control. Tony yelled as he walked into the mess of a workroom. Tony, relax. I've got it covered, Naruto said as he pointed to the window. There a squad of shadow clones were water walking and using chakra strings to manipulate kunais. Why did I ever teach you the secret to that? Tony asked himself. Because 2 years wasn't enough time to teach me everything from the clan library and you wanted me to master my chakra affinities. Naruto said as he finished his carving of the symbols. I need something quicker. Naruto thought absent-mindedly. Here. Naruto turned to see a ring from Tony. The top is flat, so you can laser carve any symbol you want into it, then with a bit of heat, you can burn the symbol easier into the arrows. Naruto nodded and hurriedly carved the symbol into the ring. He then used a low-level fire jutsu to superheat it and pressed it into the arrowhead, engraving the symbol onto it. Perfection. Thanks, Tony, Naruto said as he finished engraving the rest of his arrows. It's time, Naruto. Naruto turned to see Black Widow and Captain America standing at the door. All right, Naruto said as he fixed his back. He was wearing black loose cargo pants and a black t-shirt. There was a kunai shuriken pouch attached to his leg with black tape. He wore his Kevlar vest and had one large tattoo on his left arm. It was a pitch-black raven pecking into the eye of a skull. Under this laid 2 sealing tattoos. In these tattoos, his bow and his katana were sealed. At the middle of his bow was a small sealing tattoo where Naruto stored his bows. Naruto put on his fingerless gloves and his black beret. He had a beretta strapped to his belt and another strapped to his Kevlar vest. Around his ankle his M1911 laid. In the pockets of his vest were his spare clips, fully loaded and prepared. All right, I'm ready, Naruto said as he began walking towards the Avengers. Today would prove whether he was worthy of joining their ranks or if he would fall short. And Naruto's age is 16 at this time. Last time. Today would prove whether he was worthy of joining their ranks or if he would fall short. Now, Naruto grinned as he stood at the west entrance of the Forest of Death. Your mission is simple, began Natalia. You are to infiltrate the tower in the middle of the Forest of Death, where the preliminary rounds of the Chunin exams are held. There will be bots scouring the halls of said building, the perimeter of the building, and all around the forest. If you are caught, you fail. Your objective is located in the middle of the arena, a small box. Naruto nodded, already starting to think up a plan. After you have retrieved the item, you are to return here and deliver it. Be warned, there will be 3 powerful enemies you will be facing during these trials, and they will not hesitate to kill you. Any questions? Natalia finished her explanation. No, Naruto said as he adjusted his face mask to cover from his neck to his mouth. Like Kakashi's begin. Natalia yelled as the door slammed open and Naruto ran inside. Good luck, Naruto, Natalia thought with a frown. With Naruto. As soon as the door had closed, Naruto took to the trees and made his way towards the center of the forest. So far, he had only encountered a few scattered patrols. Nothing too major. Naruto thought as he climbed to the top of a tree and stood on a branch. Objective is half a mile away. Naruto thought as he took out a small scroll from one of the pockets in his vest. The scroll didn't seem all that important, only the kanji for infiltration, signifying what it was for. Naruto unraveled it and unsealed a pair of night vision binoculars. He took them and began scouting the area for patrols. Nothing, but I thought there was supposed to be heavy security. All there is a bunch of gray dots. Naruto thought as he started zooming in. Wait, those aren't dots. They're patrols. Naruto watched as the robots kept a vigil watch on all sections of the forest, making it nearly impossible to sneak into the base. I need to get closer, Naruto thought as he slowly made his way as close as he could to the tower, then climbed to the top of the highest tree near the building. Distance is too much for me to jump, Naruto thought as he looked up and saw the sky was cloudy. And he also saw a large cloud headed right to the middle of the moon, hopefully blocking out the moonlight and giving him a small window of time. Judging by the wind speed and direction, I would say that cloud will give me roughly 5 minutes to sneak in. Naruto thought as he unsealed his bow from his tattoo and unsealed a small box from the infiltration scroll. He attached the box to a regular arrow and took aim as the cloud grew closer. Easy. Easy. Now, Naruto thought as he let the arrow fly. Without much sound, the arrow dug itself to the top of the building near a balcony. As soon as the arrow struck, the black box shot out backwards a long black Teflon cable. Naruto watched as the sharp edge of said cable buried itself into the tree. He then grabbed his bow, undid the string, and sling it across the cable. With a running start, he used it as a zip line. In the dark night, his figure went unnoticed by the security bots. Without the moonlight as a base, they were pretty much blind as bats. As soon as he landed, Naruto retrieved his arrow and unclipped the black box from it. After he pressed a button, the Teflon cable swiftly and silently receded into the box. Naruto resealed his bow in the box and unsealed a lock-picking kit. Within a minute, he had the door open without damage to the lock. As he stepped into the dimly lit hallway, he slowly walked towards the hallway. As Naruto entered the hallway, he ducked into a dark corner. Damn it, I undershot it. I'm guessing 3 more floors until the arena. Naruto thought as he watched the robots finish their rounds. Set pattern, yet they never approach the end hallway. Naruto thought as he slowly opened a door. He went into the vacant room and looked around. A vase. Perfect. Naruto thought as he slowly set it up on the edge, where it was certain to fall. I've got about 30 seconds. Naruto thought as he closed the door and walked back into the hallway. He approached the short archway and pressed his hands against the wall. He then added pressure to them and planted his feet against the other wall, walking and holding himself upwards on a wall without chakra. Crash. Naruto grinned as he saw most of the robots activate and walk towards the sound. As soon as the last of them had passed him to get to the room, he quietly dropped down and made his way to the staircase. Staircase. Naruto slowly made his way up the stairs, careful not to make too much noise. There were no patrols, which worried him. As he arrived at the 3rd floor, nothing had been tripped. He opened the door to the arena only to find it empty. Naruto looked forward and saw a single spotlight aimed at the middle of the room. In it was a pedestal with a large wooden box. Bingo! Naruto thought as he made his way towards the pedestal. Remember, there is no such thing as too easy. Naruto suddenly remembered from a lesson with Natalia. He unsealed a small smoke bomb and used it. After the smoke cleared, Naruto saw various laser tripwires all around the box. I should have known. Naruto mumbled as he unsealed his bow in the same black box. He strapped the box to his belt and aimed it at the ceiling, then fired. 2 small arrowheads flew from the box and buried themselves into the ceiling. As soon as they were tightened, Naruto was lifted towards the ceiling. As he tried to stabilize himself, Naruto slowly clicked the lower button. The cable slowly lowered him towards the box. He had to twist and turn to avoid intercrossing lasers. After 20 minutes, Naruto finally landed. He slowly removed the box and sealed it into his infiltration scroll, under an empty slot labeled, Objective. As soon as it was secured, Naruto made his way halfway back up and cleared the lasers. He then began to swing on the wire, and as soon as he gained momentum, he jumped, releasing the arrowheads from the ceiling. As he landed, he tucked himself into a ball and rolled safely. He sealed everything back up and walked towards the nearest window, which was enforced by metal bars. He unsealed his katana and swung it hard twice, cutting the bars clean. As he looked outside, he saw he was now facing the opposite side of where he entered. He looked to see the nearest tree was extremely far away. He unsealed a large length of rope, tied it to an arrow, and shot the arrow into the side of the building. He gripped the rope and slowly made his way down. After he touched ground, he tugged the rope 3 times, loosening the arrow so it fell. The noise attracted a few robots. Naruto was once again sweating bullets as he dove into the nearest length of bushes. The robots looked around the area, but found nothing, so they went back to their post. Naruto then sealed the rope and arrow back into his infiltration scroll and tucked it away into his vest's pocket. After sealing his arrow, Naruto dashed towards the south perimeter of the Forest of Death, happy his mission had been successful. Meeting point. Naruto grinned as he arrived. "I did it, you guys!" Naruto yelled, only to feel a sharp pain in his side as a large steel-toed boot buried itself into his side and threw him to the ground. Naruto looked up to see Hawkeye, Captain America, and Black Widow standing before him in their Avengers uniforms, weapons in hand. "We told you you would face 3 powerful opponents. Your final test is to kill us," Captain stated coldly as he prepared his shield. "No holds barred, no pulled punches. If you don't kill us in these robot bodies, we'll kill you," Hawkeye stated as he loaded an arrow into his bow. "Come on, show us how you've grown," Natalia finished as she loaded a small revolver in her ha. "Come on, show us how you've grown," Natalia finished as she loaded a small revolver in her hand. Now, Naruto looked at the 3 legends standing before him as he rose to his feet. He wiped a bit of saliva trailing from his mouth, a side effect from the kick. "Damn, you guys really pulled out all the stops," he remarked offhandedly and unsealed his standard katana from his shoulder. "Any chance of this being a fair fight?" Naruto asked with a smirk. He was replied by Captain throwing his shield towards him as Natalia charged forward. "Guess not." Naruto quickly jumped backwards to avoid the shield, but was put on the defensive as Natalia attacked him. She went through a series of strikes to his body, but he managed to avoid all of them. She stomped her foot on the ground and released the retractable blade. She then followed up with a kick to Naruto's face, which he managed to catch. Before Natalia could retaliate, Naruto kicked her supporting foot out from under her and slammed her into the ground. He reached for a kunai to end it with, but was slammed into by Captain America and was sent sprawling into the ground. Hawkeye took this opportunity and fired an arrow with an attached bomb towards Naruto. Naruto jumped to his feet and threw the kunai towards the incoming arrow, then began a chain of hand seals. "Shadow kunai technique," he yelled as the slim kunai multiplied into dozens. As soon as both of the projectiles collided, a large explosion shook the clearing. "Damn it, these guys aren't holding anything back," Naruto thought as he took cover behind a large boulder and took out his 2 guns. As the smoke cleared, Natalia again tried to rush him, only to be stopped by the hail of bullets aimed at her. She quickly turned and took refuge with Cap and his shield. As soon as she counted 34 bullets, she jumped out and rushed his defense with Cap, only to find him gone. "Shit," she yelled as she raised her hands to block an incoming kick. While her arms absorbed most of the impact, she was still sent flying a few feet away as Naruto went toe-to-toe with Cap. Cap began the encounter by throwing a hook towards Naruto's head, only for him to duck under the hook and deliver a brutal kick to Cap's knee. Before Cap could stabilize himself, Naruto grabbed his head and slammed it into his knee. He unsealed his katana and aimed the death strike, only to go on the defense as Hawkeye charged him with a sword of his own. "Come on, brat," Hawkeye yelled as he slashed at Naruto, but Naruto just kept backing up slowly and parrying the oncoming blows. As soon as Hawkeye sent a slash to Naruto's neck, Naruto ducked under him and slashed at his leg, cutting it clean off. Hawkeye stumbled and fell, but before Naruto could kill him, Natalia wrapped her legs around Naruto's neck and threw him. As Naruto slowly got up, he looked to see Natalia standing there, ready for the final face-off. He sealed his sword and adjusted his gloves. "Come on," Naruto yelled as Natalia ran to him and threw a hook followed by jab, then a straight, and finished it with a kick to Naruto's face. Naruto caught the leg and before she could react, brought it down on his knee. Natalia screamed in pain as her leg shattered. She slowly got up and aimed her weapon at him, only to find him gone. She swiftly scanned the area in hopes of finding him, until she felt a strong grip on her arm. She turned to see a kick aimed to her head and leaned back to dodge it, but was surprised when it stopped a few inches after passing her head. She watched as the kick was brought back and the leg wrapped around her neck. She felt as the other leg swept her feet out from under her, sending them both to the ground. Naruto was holding her in an intricate-looking lock, putting her in a kneeling position with his leg around her neck and her head facing upwards. Without a single hand seal, a shadow clone appeared and performed a downward kick to her face, snapping her neck and ending the robot's life. As Naruto got up, Cap and Hawkeye stared at him. He had just beaten Natalia in her own fighting style. Cap was a bit shell-shocked at seeing his wife die yet again. First at the hands of Ultron, now at the hands of Naruto. He managed to snap out of it in time to see Naruto and Hawkeye fighting with swords. While Hawkeye was a clear weapons master, Naruto had always had a knack for weapons. Naruto grinned as he began channeling wind chakra into the sword and slashed at Hawkeye's, cutting it in half. Hawkeye quickly grabbed his bow and used the sharpened ends to retaliate against Naruto's sword. "Looks like you finally took my advice," Naruto remarked offhandedly as he looked at the sharpened edges of Hawkeye's bow. "A good teacher learns from his students," Hawkeye returned as he ducked under Naruto's slash. Naruto grinned and charged at Hawkeye, completely running past the downward slash Hawkeye tried to get him with. With one swift backward slash, Naruto buried his sword into Hawkeye's chest. He turned and pulled the sword upwards, opening a good portion of Hawkeye's chest. As the robot fell to the floor lifeless, Naruto's senses went haywire. He did a series of backflips to avoid a series of bullets aimed right at him. As he landed, he looked up to see Cap holding Natalia's gun and his shield. "You didn't forget about me, did you?" Cap asked angrily, a fire burning in his robotic eyes. Naruto scratched the back of his head and laughed nervously. "Maybe," he said and began running. Cap wasted no time and began firing the bullets left in the chamber at him. As soon as the bullets ran out, Cap tossed the gun to the ground. He looked around carefully, only to see an arrow headed towards him. As soon as it landed, it exploded, sending Cap off his feet. "What the hell? I thought Hawkeye didn't teach him how to make detonating arrows," Cap thought as he tried to get up, his confused brain trying to make sense of what just happened. As soon as he got to his feet, a large boot impacted with his head and sent him back down. Cap looked up to see Naruto over him, bow and arrow in hand. Naruto quickly let an arrow loose and watched it dig itself into the stomach of the robot. A few seconds later, one final explosion shook the forest as the robot was scattered to hundreds of tiny pieces. Naruto grimaced as he walked up to Tony and Jarvis. "Good job, kid," Tony said as he patted the boy on the back. "This isn't a time to celebrate. I just killed them for no good reason. I don't deserve to be part of the Avengers." Naruto said grimly as he walked towards the entrance to the bunker, only to be stopped by an arm on his shoulder. He turned to see Natalia, Cap, and Hawkeye standing there, unharmed. You guys are alive. But how? Naruto asked, tears of joy forming in his eyes. Please, those were just robot units. So long as our memory banks remain and there is a capable robot, we won't be leaving you alone. Natalia said as she hugged a now sobbing Naruto. She smiled as she saw his reaction. This was what finished his trials. Despite the fight and trials, he was able to do what needed to be done. And he didn't kill without emotion, but rather mourned the dead, despite they were enemies. Despite the inhumane levels of training Naruto took part in, he still retained the one thing every Avenger should have. His humanity. Hey kid, hand me that box you retrieved. Tony said. Naruto nodded as he wiped away the tears running down his cheeks and made his way towards the group with Natalia. He unsealed the box and handed it to Tony, who in turn handed it to Cap. Congratulations Naruto. Cap began as he took out a belt buckle with the Avengers insignia on it and another Avenger A that looked like it could be clipped to his vest. You have been through 8 long years of training, but have more than proven yourself of being worthy of being an Avenger. Today, you officially join our ranks as the first Avenger in 500 years. Codename: Maelstrom. Captain finished. But why Maelstrom? Naruto asked with a smile. Because you somehow managed to suck in everything we taught you and made it your own. You mastered the teachings and improved them to such an extent that we were beaten by what we taught you. Natalia finished with a small smile on her face. And as custom dictates, I now pass my assassin name on to you. From now on, in infiltration, information, and assassination, you will be known as the new Black Widow. Naruto smiled as he hugged each of them. Thanks guys. You have no idea what this means to me. Naruto groaned as his alarm clock went off. Yesterday, he had managed to defeat Captain, Natalia, and Hawkeye. Today was his first official day as an Avenger. He put on his black cargo pants, steel-toed boots, and a black t-shirt and headed towards the kitchen. As he walked down the passageways, he noticed the maintenance robots seemed to be busy today, sunning left and right to service access tunnels, if he guessed correctly. He shook it off as he arrived at the kitchen and made his breakfast. Naruto scrambled a few eggs, toasted some bread, chopped some fruit, and made himself a cup of coffee. However, before he could actually eat, the screen in the kitchen blinked on and Natalia, Cap, Tony, and Hawkeye were shown on the screen. Naruto, have you eaten yet? Natalia asked through the screen. Actually, I was just about to before you called. He replied. Good. Meet us in the rec room right now. We need to talk. Came the response from Captain. Naruto groaned as he looked at his fresh breakfast, but relented and headed towards the rec room. Rec room. Are you sure the process will not harm him in any way, Jarvis? Captain asked as he looked at the holographic man. Yes, Tony. His body is fit enough to where the stimulation of his cells to grow at an advanced pace will not hurt him, but benefit him. Jarvis replied, calming Tony down. What about his chakra network? Will it be able to handle the stress? Natalia asked as she looked at the worried face of Cap. Since the cells will be forced to grow at an accelerated rate, I believe his coils will become larger and larger by the process. And his chakra core will respond to the enlarging chakra coils by producing more and more chakra at an accelerated rate, increasing his reserves. Jarvis replied, calming Natalia. However, his control over his reserves will be shot to hell. Tony added as an afterthought, worrying Natalia. As soon as he saw the worry on her face, he immediately realized his mistake. But it's fine. He knows how to form chakra strings, he knows water walking, tree climbing, and kunai balancing. With his knowledge and a few shadow clones, he will be back at his old level in no time. Tony finished as Naruto walked into the room. All eyes fell on Naruto as he sat in his seat. You guys wanted to discuss something? Naruto asked as he looked at the Avengers. Jarvis stepped forward and began to ask a few questions. Hello Naruto. When was the last time you ate? Yesterday morning, before the exam. Naruto replied. Any abnormalities in your chakra coils you can feel? No, not really. Why are you asking all of these questions? Naruto replied and asked. Well Naruto, do you remember how I became the super soldier I am? Captain asked, cutting Jarvis off and asking Naruto a question. Yay, you told me an old friend of yours developed a serum and you volunteered to be a human guinea pig. But what about the serum? You said it's been lost for ages. Naruto replied. Jarvis has managed to recreate the serum to a certain degree and has changed it based on a few notes from the Namikaze library. Tony answered as he looked at Naruto with an expressionless face. Wait, you mean he cracked it? Naruto asked with an odd expression. Yes, but not quite. Natalia said as she pulled up a computer screen. The current serum we have only increases strength, stamina, speed, and a quicker metabolism. It offers no advanced healing, muscle growth, or physical growth like Captain's did. In layman's terms, you wouldn't change on the outside, just the inside. Natalia finished as she looked at Jarvis. I discovered a few intriguing notes in the Namikaze library. Jarvis said as he handed Naruto a file. Naruto opened it to see pictures of an odd bacterium and test results. That bacteria was created by Orochimaru of the Sannin in an attempt to create the perfect body. It stimulates chakra cores in order to heighten reserves as much as possible. As you can see, many of his experiments died because their chakra coils were unable to adapt. Jarvis said as Tony took over. Due to the serum and you having a healing factor due to your Uzumaki heritage, we believe that the bacteria might be a success in you. Of course, your control over your reserves will be shot to hell, but we're confident you can get it back to snuff. Naruto smiled and nodded at Tony's comment, but turned to see Cap's serious expression. There is one downside. We will need huge amounts of power to get this project going. While the nuclear reactor here could power it, I'm afraid it would suffer a major meltdown and this whole bunker would be uninhabitable. We would no longer be with you, Naruto. You would be on your own with power. Ultimately, we have decided to let you make this decision. Power, or no. Naruto cut Captain off before he could finish his question. What do you mean Naruto? Natalia asked as she sat next to him. You guys are my family, my real family. You guys trained me, cared for me when I was sick, and helped me with my problems. I am not going to give that up. I'll find some other way to get stronger, but not at the cost of those that are closest to me. Naruto said, making Cap look at him with wide eyes. Instead of taking power to accomplish whatever he might want, Naruto chose his family and those that were precious to him. While Cap may have been hesitant to give Naruto the serum because he feared it would turn him into another Red Skull, that statement erased any doubt he had. Captain smiled as he tossed Naruto a pair of keys and a map. We're doing it Naruto, he said as he turned away. Those keys are for an abandoned warehouse Jarvis was kind enough to purchase. We moved all of your stuff there. Weapons, uniforms, a laptop, a communicator, and a copy of the entire programming of this bunker. In that map I marked the location of the Natalia's last secret bunker. While the landscape might have changed, it holds all of the technology this bunker does. Captain finished. But what about the radiation? Naruto demanded. This place was made to withstand an H-bomb, it can hold radiation it. Besides, all of the service entrances are already secured and welded shut. The place where the serum will be administered will be an isolated room. After it has been done, you will have to start the self-destruct and seal the gate. No technology or anything from this bunker can be exposed to the outside world. Before Naruto could retort, he felt a sharp pain in the back of his neck and he slumped in his chair. Everyone turned to see Black Widow holding him, making sure he didn't slam his head onto the table. I'm sorry, Naruto, but this is for your own good. she whispered as she ran her fingers through his hair. Time skip. Project Chamber. Naruto groaned as he felt a small prick in his shoulder. He looked up to see Tony injecting something into his shoulder. That wasn't too bad, he said, making Tony look up at him. That was just the penicillin, he said, making Naruto gulp. Nervous? Asked Cap. A little. Will I ever see you guys again? He asked as Natalia took out 4 vials and put them into the injecting machines. As various patches of what looked like rows of needles descended into his arms, Natalia spoke. There's a backup of all of the data in this bunker in the warehouse we told you about. All you have to do is upload it into the system and we'll be there, just the way we are now. Naruto groaned as the needles dug themselves into his chest, legs, arms, and stomach. As soon as the injections were administered, the examination table he was on rose into a reclining position. What's going on? Naruto asked. You will be bombarded by a special ray that stimulates muscle development and growth. This will help boost your strength, agility, flexibility, chakra reserves and coils. Naruto nodded as the chamber closed and the intense light began to bombard him. Tony was at the controls turning a wheel clockwise to control the ray. 60, 65. Tony counted as a loud scream tore through the small chamber. Stop it, Natalia demanded, worried for Naruto's safety. We can't. Either way, this place is going to blow. Tony replied as he kept turning the wheel. 80, 85.90. Captain America stared worriedly at the chamber where Naruto was in. He remembered the intense pain, but knew that ultimately it would help him. 100, Tony said, the large room growing deathly quiet. No more screams for Naruto. No, nothing. Is he alright? Get him out, Natalia demanded, only for the machines to suddenly blow and sparks of electricity to fill the room. A large alarm blared and a loud computer voice began announcing the meltdown of the nuclear reactor. As Naruto stepped out, he tried to stand on his own, but couldn't. He was caught by Hawkeye. Captain looked at Naruto and stared in awe. His body had been stripped of excess body fat and his already existing muscles had been sharpened to the point where it seemed like a sculptor had taken a chisel at him and hacked away. His face was much sharper, the baby fat from his cheeks long since gone. Overall, the changes made to his physical appearance were minimal, but significant. Naruto took his black t-shirt from Natalia, but before he could respond, was ushered out the only remaining exit. Naruto, the meltdown has begun, Tony said as he looked at the keypad in front of him. Type in your codename and the self-destruct sequence will begin. Naruto hesitated at first, but was reassured when Cap placed his hand over his shoulder. Things can't last forever. Now go. Naruto nodded, typed his name in, and ran towards the exit hatch. As he got outside, he noticed he was right at the exit of the Forest of Death. He then sealed the hatch and walked away. A small thump was heard, and Naruto knew that was the end of the Avengers bunker. He dug into his pockets and found the keys and map. 3325 Bushido Avenue, huh? Naruto asked as he put on a henge and headed towards town. Time skip. Bushido Avenue. Naruto groaned as he finally got to Bushido Avenue. He had been wandering the village for most of the day and had found a small place that sold maps. He bought one of the entire elemental continent and was shocked at how big it was. He was shaken from his thoughts as he arrived at a run-down warehouse. He silently unlocked the door and let himself in, and was amazed by the interior. It was by no means the bunker, but it was clean, had his equipment, his laptop, his clothing, and his bed. On the desk where his laptop sat was a small picture frame. He picked it up and smiled. It was a picture of last night. He, Jarvis, Tony, Hawkeye, Natalia, and Cap were huddled together with Naruto's face buried into a slice of cake. He smiled, then looked at the map Cap had given him and compared it to the one of the elemental nations. But the map he had been given seemed different. More spread out. Currently, The world's land was just one big chunk. But how? Naruto wondered as he took out a piece of paper and turned on the laptop. He had a lot of research to do. That won't work either, Naruto muttered under his breath. It had been a month since the Super Soldier Formula episode and the subsequent meltdown of the bunker. Naruto had been trying to figure out where Natalia's bunker was, but his efforts had been less than fruitful. He had made various theories of where it might be, but the maps were always off, pointing to the bunker being in the middle of nowhere or in the bottom of the ocean. No map he theorized ever managed to fit the current, elemental nations. Naruto groaned as he looked at the map sketch before him. It was impossible to figure out. At first, Naruto theorized that the elemental nations had been a result of the various continents, i.e. N. America, S. America, Asia, Europe, etc., reuniting and making another Pangaea. That idea was quickly discarded after Naruto created a map of Pangaea and realized that the specifications were off and there were entirely too many bodies of water. Since that day, his efforts got more elaborate, but to no avail. It was as if one minor detail was eluding him, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. He shrugged as he put on a coat and headed to a nearby bar and grill. This puzzle, while interesting, was going to be the death of him. Same time, Chun-Li's bar. Tazuna was having a very shitty day. To start things off, he learned when he arrived at the village that he only had enough money for a C-rank mission. Everyone told him that the Cage was a good man who would listen and try to help. Bullshit. All Tazuna got was the standard, "I'm sorry, but you can't afford that mission." After an hour of trying to barter with the man, Tazuna gave up. He offered to pay the full mission price when Wave was back on its feet, but that didn't work. Tazuna even went as far as to offer an exclusive trading contract with Wave, but the man just wasn't listening. All he was interested in was gold. I guess it is the one thing that makes the world go round. Tazuna mused as he went back to his drink. He never noticed the young blonde man order a meal and sit beside him. "What's got you down in the dumps, old man?" Naruto asked the drunk sitting next to him. Tazana looked at him and spoke, "Life, Gaki. Life's got me down. Come on, it can't be that bad," Naruto said as a cute red-headed waitress handed his order to him. "Not that bad. I was supposed to hire a ninja team to protect me so I can help finish a project that would benefit my home. But can I? No, all because of that money-grubbing Cage," Tazuna said as he stopped to drink his drink. "Well, why not barter with him? I'm sure if you offered him payment at a future date or something," Naruto began, but was cut off by Tazuna. "Kid, the only way that's going to happen is if he starts looking at things upside down." A flash of recognition ripped through Naruto when he heard those words. "Upside down, that's it," Naruto happily exclaimed as he jumped from his seat. He pulled out a wallet and left enough to cover the meal plus a tip. "When are you leaving, old man?" Naruto asked. "Tomorrow." "Why?" Tazuna asked warily. "Because you just found yourself a bodyguard," Naruto said as he left the bar in a hurry. Warehouse. Naruto groaned as he looked through all of the map sketches he made. Specifically, he was looking for the first one he made of Pangaea. If his hunch was correct, then, aha! Naruto said as he found the sketch. He flipped it and drew it reflected. If my theory is correct, then the continental drift tore apart the original Pangaea and replaced it with a mirror image, on the other side of the world. Naruto said to himself as he finished the tracing. Now, Naruto began as he overlapped his sketch with the original map. "It fits," Naruto yelled triumphantly as he tried to figure out the location of Natalia's bunker. "Now if I'm right, then it should be here," Naruto said as he pointed right at the village hidden in the clouds, Kumogakure no Sato. Quote. Naruto said as he saw how far he would have to travel. It was literally the other way. Naruto groaned, but started collecting his items and sealing them in scrolls. Part of being an Avenger was helping people who needed help, and that drunk in the bar looked like a dead man walking. Time skip. The next day. Naruto waited patiently at the village gates for Tazuna. He had locked the warehouse up and had taken everything of value with him. This might be the last time he saw this wretched village, and he could without a doubt say he wouldn't miss it. Since he spent all of his time in the bunker, he didn't really have any connections here. All he had were memories. Naruto was shaken from his thoughts as Tazuna arrived at the gate. Oh, you were serious. Listen, kid, I know I was drunk last night, but you don't have to stick your neck out for me. I've led, Tazuna began, only to see Naruto already outside the village gates. Hey brat, wait up. Tazuna yelled as he jogged to Naruto. You know there's little pay, right? Tazuna began. Did I ask for money? Naruto replied as he continued to walk. It's life-threatening. Won't your parents be worried? Tazuna asked, and Naruto thought to Kushina and Minato. I sincerely doubt it. He replied. What about? Are you trying to talk me out of helping you? Naruto asked Tazuna, who quickly shut up. Well, since you're hell-bent on it, I might as well tell you the full story. Tazuna said as he took a seat and wove a tale of Wave Country and how Gato was running it to the ground. By the end of the story, Naruto spoke, so basically, a tyrant has managed to worm his way into immeasurable power and is tormenting your people, and your bridge is the only thing that could liberate Wave from its dependence on him. Naruto asked. Sounds about right. Tazuna said as he studied Naruto's face, trying to see what the teen was going to do. Then we have no time to waste. Naruto said as he got up and walked towards the land of waves. Tazuna followed him. You know you could die, right? Tazuna asked grimly. I could, but then again I could live. And where's the fun in that? Naruto asked, making Tazuna look at him strangely. What do you mean, brat? You either die for something or live for nothing. I never was the type to be idle. Naruto replied. I like you, kid. What's your name? Isn't it common courtesy to introduce yourself before asking someone else's name? Naruto asked in response, making Tazuna sweat drop. I'm Tazuna, the super bridge builder. Naruto Romanov. Naruto replied as he kept walking. Time skip. One day. Naruto grinned as he and Tazuna walked towards the docks. These last few days weren't that bad with the drunk, besides the fact that Tazuna wanted to stop off at every bar they passed. Naruto was shaken from his thoughts as he saw a puddle in his way. A puddle, dry ground, cracked from dry heat. Far away from any set settlement, so a wandered spilling is less likely, especially that amount. It's an ambush, he thought as he quietly took out a kunai. Now, Gozu yelled as he and Maizu jumped upwards, ready to attack Naruto. They tried to wrap the chain from their gauntlet around Naruto, but he managed to backflip over it. Before the demon brothers could react, Naruto was in front of Maizu. After a hook to Maizu's jaw, Naruto jumped up and rammed his knee into Maizu's face. A sickening crunch was heard as Naruto broke Maizu's nose and dropped him on the floor. Gozu disconnected his gauntlet from the chain and charged at Naruto, only to be stopped by a large kick to his head. He was sent sprawling to the floor while Naruto took the opportunity to tie them up. Who sent you? Naruto asked the brothers as he stood over them. I don't know what you're talking about. Gozu said in a bit of fear. Please. This ambush was the work of an amateur. Considering you guys are missing Nin at Chunin level, it's obvious you're working under someone to gain an indirect protection. Now I'll ask again, who sent you? Naruto asked as he pulled out his gun. Ha 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 ha, you won't be able to defeat him like you did us, he's in a league of his own. Gozu stated with an insane smirk. Well, we won't know until we try, will we? Naruto asked as he shot Gozu through the heart, killing him. You going to talk? Naruto asked Maizu, only for the nin to shake his head. Sorry, but the death you're offering is merciful compared to what he would do. Maizu said. Naruto nodded and shot him through the head. Using a low-level fire jutsu, Naruto burned the bodies and went back to join Tazuna. Did you kill them? Tazuna asked with some fear in his voice. I didn't have a choice. Not only were they non-compliant, but they were also a loose end. If I had let them go, they would have continued to live their lives of crime. If I had left them there, a ninja would have just cut off their heads and turned them in for their bounty. Considering their options, killing them was the merciful thing. Naruto said grimly. Thanks, kid. I would have been dead by now if it wasn't for you. Tazuna stated. Don't mention it. Are we anywhere close to the land of waves? Naruto asked. Yay. Just a boat ride away. Naruto nodded as he followed Tazuna towards the dock in their boat. He unsealed his bow and got ready. Whoever the next player would be, they would be bigger game. Time skip. One boat ride. Naruto walked carefully behind Tazuna as they walked towards Tazuna's town. It had been an uneventful boat ride across the ocean, but he was sure things would pick up now. Naruto unsealed a regular arrow and shot it into the bushes, then walked towards them. When he arrived, he saw a large white rabbit with the arrow through its side. As he retrieved his arrow, he noticed something was off about the rabbit. White fur, but it's summer. It should be a brown fur. Claws have no dirt on them and the rabbit itself is tick-free, so a pet. Naruto's eyes widened as he turned to Tazuna. Get down. He yelled as he tackled the old man to the ground. As soon as they hit the floor, a large blade flew over them and buried itself into a tree a few feet away from them. As Naruto and the old man slowly got up, a sinister voice spoke. Looks like the demon brothers failed after all. Pathetic. Naruto looked around to see if he could spot anyone, but found nothing except a thick mist settling in. So the demon brothers were working under someone. Who are you? Naruto demanded. The mist slowly cleared to show a tall and noticeably muscular man with bandages wrapped around his mouth and a slashed kiri headband retrieving the giant blade from the tree. My name is Zabuza Momoichi, formerly of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist. And your executioner. Zabuza finished his introduction as he hefted the large blade over his shoulder.